An introduction to Cloudflare. This is a presentation that I am about to do in about 2 days at Color Code in Buffalo, New York. Color Code is a conference that is not a WordCamp, but it's sponsored and put together by people from the WordPress community. So I'm just gonna dive in here. The whole purpose of me doing this is I know it's a lot of information and I want people to be able to watch it and then replicate it. And I figure I don't want people to have to take a bazillion notes. So here I go. So let's see. I am not even selected the right window. There we go. All right. So my name is Aaron, and I am a WordPress developer. We have my wife and I have 4 kids. We've been married for 26 years, and from Atlanta, Georgia. I've been a web developer since 1996, since I was 19. I've been doing WordPress full time since 2008. I was playing around with WordPress a little bit before then, around 2005. I had a blog back then, and I lead the Atlanta WordPress meetup, and I own an agency called Clockwork Web Dev. And I've, I had an agency before that called Sideways 8. Ran that for 9 years with a business partner and sold in 19. So Clockwork is about 6 years old. So let's dive in. Well, you guys are on YouTube and you probably don't need the slides. So we'll skip that. Uh, this presentation is all about DNS. It was what, 2003 or so when I got this book, DNS and Bind. I think it was the second edition. Now there's been a whole lot more editions since then. Uh, but I learned a ton about how DNS works, and this was way back when there wasn't a lot of, I mean, YouTube didn't exist. So how did you learn anything before YouTube existed, right? You would buy books. So I read this book, learned a lot. So let me just explain real quick about what DNS is. DNS stands for Domain Name Service, and it runs on. This is where it gets a little confusing. DNS server, so domain name servers, really. So, but DNS technically stands for Domain Name Server Service, but a lot of people think it stands for Domain Name Server. It doesn't really matter to me. When you say it, people know what you're talking about. But what DNS does is it translates your request to a bunch of numbers, kind of like how a phone book works. If you need to look up Aaron Ryman, I mean, if phone books still exist, I don't know if they, they actually exist anymore, but you could go to Ryman and then find Aaron, and then you would get the phone number. DNS is the same thing. When you try to go to aaronryman.com, your computer goes and talks to your DNS server, and it says, hey, where's aaronryman.com? And it returns the IP address, and then it pulls the website up based on that IP address. So DNS is super important. DNS doesn't just involve your email address, it controls your email, and now a lot of times your phones are also connected to DNS in some way, form, or fashion. So DNS is super important. So how can a registrar be set up? There's a couple different ways a registrar can be set up. And what is a registrar? A registrar is a place where you can go buy a domain. Most people, and I use GoDaddy in this example because they kind of have won the registrar war, even though I never register anything at GoDaddy except for this talk. I bought a domain specifically for this talk on GoDaddy so I can get a bunch of screenshots. But a lot of people will have their domain registered there, and they will have their DNS there and their website, but that is not necessarily required. You can have, so that step one or setup one is the default, but sometimes people register their domain there and have their DNS there, but have their website hosted on Bluehost or Wix or wherever it is. In this case, we're really going to do the GoDaddy setup version 3, where we're only using the registrar. Obviously, we could go back and have the DNS we could have the website also hosted at GoDaddy if you wanted to, but I honestly not a huge fan of GoDaddy's hosting. It's just not the fastest. So in this case, in this situation, I'm going to be explaining how to move a domain off of GoDaddy onto Cloudflare because Cloudflare is free. So, why did I start using Cloudflare? Well, I had a business partner who also had a friend that had this crazy idea of building 48 websites for 48 nonprofits in 48 hours. It was wild, the first event. We didn't have a platform. We found a friend that had a multi-tenancy platform where they were individual WordPress sites, but they were all on one server. And we realized that 48 websites on one server, even if it's massive and you have 150 people making changes to the site, hitting submit, saving changes over and over again, that server's going to get hammered. Another problem is DNS. When we were finished with the event, we had to take these sites live. And so we needed to log in to 48 different registrars, whether it be GoDaddy or Wild West Domains or I don't know. There's so many uh, companies that sell domains, but we had to log in to all of them, like Network Solutions and things like that. And it wound up being a nightmare trying to take those sites live. Um, the following year in 2016 we did the event in Atlanta and Boston, and then in 17 we did it in 5 cities, and then it just kind of continued. We did a lot of events, and so we needed a central location to get people to transfer their domain to these so we could log in as one user and make these DNS changes. So that is where Cloudflare came in. And up until 2015, I had not used Cloudflare, but Cloudflare allowed us to tell the nonprofit, hey, go here. We did like this LMS course where it walks them through making these changes. And so after the first event, we had everyone on Cloudflare, and going live was a lot easier. Sure, we still had problems, but it wasn't insane trying to log into Network Solutions and then GoDaddy and then Wild West and all that. So Cloudflare was one of the first places where you could invite someone more technical to manage the DNS. So ever since then, it's been 10 years now, and I use Cloudflare with almost every client. I mean, we at least try to get every client on there. Again, here are those slides. If somebody that's for my talk in 2 days. So migrating DNS from GoDaddy to Cloudflare. So when you log in to GoDaddy, you're going to see this, and it's just there's the domain. Messagefrombeyond.com is the domain I bought. It's a long story behind that. Just kind of tinkering with an idea, but I needed a fresh domain where I didn't have anything, and so I bought a $10 domain for this talk specifically. And if you scroll down on this screen, you'll just see the DNS records, default DNS records that GoDaddy puts in there. But if you click on this button over here in the on the right side action, you can go over here and click on export, and you can export these records. That file looks kind of like this, and this is what a zone file looks like. This is the zone for msg.frombeyond.com. You don't have to know this, but I just figured I'll let everyone know this is what it looks like. It contains your A records, which actually I'm going to change to 123.123.123 later, because that's not a real IP address. But normally you would have a normal IP address there, and then it has your name, name server records, your TXT records, and your CNAME records. It's pretty straightforward if you're familiar with DNS. It's just a cleaner way, or a more compressed way to do it. So once you have exported your records, you're going to hit name servers here. You're going to tell it that you want to use your own name servers because you're switching from GoDaddy's servers to Cloudflare servers. You click on that, and then it's going to say, drop these two in. And you're going to say, okay, where do I get those name servers? Well, you're going to switch over and you're going to go to Cloudflare and create an account. And once you have created your account, you can either click up here in the top right and hit add where it says connect a domain, or most likely Cloudflare is going to, once you create the account, it's going to take you to this screen right here where you need to upload a zone file. So click on upload a DNS zone file, and you want to drop in your domain and then hit continue. And then this is where Cloudflare is free, and out of the couple hundred domains that I have access to in Cloudflare, I only have one domain that is using the Cloudflare paid service. So it's not that necessary. I sometimes felt bad that I'm using Cloudflare for free, but the more people that are, or more domains that are using Cloudflare, the better it is for the Cloudflare network. So they want people to jump on Cloudflare for free. Once you hit the continue button there at the bottom, it's going to take you here where you select the file that you need to upload. And in basically, once you've done that, that file, that txt file that you just downloaded, it's going to populate based on that. So here are those records. And this is one of the most important parts right here. You do not want to proxy anything except for your A record, which just A stands for address. So, and possibly your C name, or if your domain, the www, might also have an A record for the www. Basically, you want to just touch the main record and the www and have those proxying. So you would turn all the other ones off. Makes sense. Good. All right. So once you have done that, you have proxied. Obviously, we haven't told GoDaddy to make that switch yet, but once we do, what Cloudflare does, it's getting the actual IP address right now. But I always use whatsmydns.net, where I can look and see what is going on when I'm making a DNS change. I can see if it's propagating properly. And you can tell here, once I made the switch, that my public IP address is no longer being exposed. It is now using Cloudflare, basically a firewall, to not expose your record. And so what Cloudflare does, when someone tries to go to a website, you don't really get the actual IP address, the 123.123 address. You get these two IP addresses, and Cloudflare will figure out, is this a bot? Is this a human that's trying to access it? And if it looks like legit traffic, then it will redirect you or take you to the website. It all happens instantaneously. You can't tell if a site is on Cloudflare or not unless you go over and you look that up. But that is the whole the crux, I guess, of Cloudflare, is that Cloudflare allows us to do it. It hides your public IP address. So once we have turned those two things off, or however many you have, you hit continue to activate. And then these are the two things that you need to copy and paste and put into GoDaddy. So you'll copy the norm.ns and the Sophia NS. And so copy those, and then you will paste them over here in GoDaddy, and then hit save. Once that's done, GoDaddy is going to scare you to death and tell you that this might break everything and nothing's going to work ever again. Um, uh, in all seriousness, making DNS changes is a little scary, but we are just making a copy of records. We're not making really DNS changes. We're just telling it, hey, the place where you look up the records is no longer GoDaddy, it's Cloudflare. We're not making DNS changes per se. So the risk is pretty slim, and if it does break, you can go back. You can revert it. So it's not the end of the world, but it can be a little scary. And then once you hit continue on this screen, it's going to look like nothing happened, and GoDaddy has yet to fix this bug. If you refresh this page, then you will see Norman Sophia. But by default, once you hit save, you don't see your changes. You have to refresh to see Norman Sophia. And then once that's done, you can go over here to Cloudflare and tell it to check the name servers. Even though you don't actually have to hit that button, they will eventually check and see if it has been updated. But you can go over to what'smydns.net again, drop in the domain, and change this little drop down to NS to look up what the name servers are for the domain, and you can see that it has propagated properly. It's not a big deal that these things are not showing up. It just means that for some reason those servers didn't respond. What's important is that we see our new Cloudflare domain name servers, not GoDaddy's stuff. And then eventually, probably in the next 5 or 10 minutes, Cloudflare will pop up and say, hey, great news, it's all working. So that is moving a domain from GoDaddy to Cloudflare. Relatively simple. But again, remember, it has to be proxied. If you aren't proxying this, if these two things aren't checked, it's not going to put that firewall up. And so, I mean, honestly, it's not the end of the world if it's not proxied. You're just not really reaping any of the benefits of Cloudflare. So if you're super nervous and you think that you're going to break something, you could unproxy it and then contact me, and I can look at it and say, you're all good, or whatever. So, all right. So starting off with Cloudflare, the most important thing with Cloudflare is this button over here, the quick action. A lot of people move to Cloudflare, or at least when I see a site or a client has reached out saying, or a potential client reaches out and says, my site is super slow. It seems like it's being hacked, blah, blah, blah. I say, okay, well, let's go over here and let's put this under attack mode. And when you put it on attack mode, it says, it explains what it's going to do. Not a big deal. You hit enable, and then boom, you are under attack, or you're in attack mode, meaning that it's going to put a JavaScript challenge on front. We'll see what that looks like later, but you can turn that on and turn that off. But that is the kind of the end of the world type situation. But it helps. The second you turn that on, you'll see the traffic on your server start going down. It's pretty impressive. So then, just to turn it off, you just uncheck it, and you're up and running. One of the most important things is making sure that you have your SSL certificate set up properly within Cloudflare. And if you go over here on the left under SSL/TLS, you want to go over here and configure and make sure that it is configured properly. My hosting, we have to use this mode called full strict. You can, once you hit that button, you can go over here and you can tell it this is the current applied mode, which by default it's flexible. You check that, and then you can change it. And so a lot of them, like Pagely, WP Engine, can't think of other ones. Most of them set it on full strict. So, but the good thing is that well, not the good thing, I guess. If you're on flexible, on the flexible mode, and there's actually it's not working, you're going to see this too many redirects thing right here, which that's going to immediately tell you you're doing something wrong. So you switch it over. I mean, honestly, you can just switch it. It'll take 5 seconds to try which one works. But there's also once you have it set up properly here, full strict, boom, the site's gonna pull up. But the good news is that a lot of hosting companies are well versed in Cloudflare, and they have, like, Bluehost here has a guide. Here's how to use Cloudflare, and WP Engine does the same thing. Lots of the hosting companies, because Cloudflare is becoming the number one domain name service out there. So there's documentation. So read up on this before you make the change. Figure out which one you think you're going to need, so you can immediately, once you make the switch, you can switch that over without a problem. All right, so here is one of the things that I think is really cool about Cloudflare. You can set up basically a free email address with Cloudflare. A good example, let's say I wanted to sell candy at a candy shop, and but it's a side hustle. I don't want to pay for an email address every month, $7 or however much it is for a Google Apps account. You can set up Cloudflare you can set up Cloudflare to receive email at that domain, and it routes it to your Gmail account or your Hotmail account or whatever. So when you click over here on the left on email and then go to email routing, hit the get started button. What's the custom email address you want to use? You drop in whatever you want it to be. I put in Aaron at msgfrombeyond.com, and tell it where do you want it to go. I already have a verified email account here, so aaron.ryman@gmail.com is verified. You'll have to do that. It takes 2 seconds. They send you an email. You have to say, yes, I want to receive email from Cloudflare. But once you do that, you hit the continue button. It's going to tell you you've got to make 5 mail record changes, 3 MX records and 2 TXT records. But this is the cool part about Cloudflare, is that you're already on Cloudflare, so you don't have to copy and paste each record over and over again. You literally just push a button, you push the button, and then you look it up on whatsmydns.net. You tell it to look at your mail exchange records, your MX records, and you can say, immediately Cloudflare has already propagated, and that mail should be working. And then over here it'll say, yes, you have one custom DNS record, and it works. So pretty awesome. Super free, and pretty easy to set up. And then when you're done, you can just turn it off. So that's one of the features I really like about Cloudflare. I don't use it that often, to be honest, because most of my clients have legit email accounts and things like that. But it's really good. I see a lot of people having a side hustle, and they use their Gmail account. It just doesn't look that professional. This allows you to look more professional. You don't have to be more professional, but you just look more professional. DMARC in Cloudflare. So what does DMARC stand for? It stands for Domain-Based Message Authentication, Reporting, and Conformance. All right, I'll let someone else read the rest of this, but it's one of the things. It works with DMARC and SPF to make email more secure. And honestly, it's kind of a pain to set up unless you're on Cloudflare. So under here in the email section 2, you can just tell it DMARC management. You tell it to enable DMARC, push that button, and it says, hey, you've got this weird record, which is just a default record that came from GoDaddy, and it says you need to update it to this. You literally push a button. Whoop, I went too far. There we go. You tell it to update it, you push the button, scroll down a little bit, hit the button, and hit save, and boom, your DMARC is done. All right, DNS in CloudFlare. So this is just the section that's kind of the boring part. This is when you use DNS on GoDaddy or Bluehost or something like that. This is the normal stuff that you can change in here. Not a lot of features in here. The only feature I'm aware of is that you can put notes in there, which is actually a little handy when you're making changes for a client. If they say like, oh, we need to drop this TXT record for some Facebook verification or Google authentication or something like that, you can put a comment in there and let you know when it happened. And then when you put your mouse over the note here, it says, I changed the IP address on 3323, which is a little handy. Not much else out in there. A couple things that I want to note. When you buy a domain at GoDaddy, it creates a bunch of records that aren't needed. Like, I'm never going to use pay links. I don't even know what that is. I don't need this GoDaddy thing. I know I don't need these name servers in here either. So you can just check these, delete them, get rid of them. Be careful though. Always have a backup or talk to someone like me. But there's a lot of default DNS stuff that is not actually needed. Most websites that I host, we have. I mean, if it's a new domain, they'll have an A record, they'll have a CNAME record for www, and then uh, that's honestly it. They might not have anything else. If they have email, then there'll be some MX records and maybe some other TXT records. But I just try to keep it pretty clean. I have one client that has about 60 records in there, and I'm just dying to go in and clean it up. Um, but nonetheless, this is what it should look like when it's a little cleaner. So, and I'm kind of hiding my IP address there because I don't want people to see my public IP address right here for that domain, even though that domain I'm not really doing anything with it. All right, fighting bots in Cloudflare. When clients reach out to me and they say, hey, we're getting a lot of unwanted spam in our form, I say, well, are you on Cloudflare? Problem first, that's the first question. And, if they are, then I'll say, huh, okay. But a lot of times, a lot of the spam that's coming from the contact form, it's just bots being filled out, and you can turn this feature on and off very easily. If you go under security and then go to bots, you can tell it to turn bot fight mode on, and then you can also block AI bots. This is a new feature. The question for the block AI bots. The question is, do you want Google to use your site to come up with the AI answer, or not? If you want your information to be included in that, you can leave this off. Right now, a lot of times I turn it off. That's your preference. The most important one is that you get this first one covered. The second one is just, do you want your site to be included in AI research? Um, Again, I right now I'm blocking a lot of it. It really depends on the use case. AI is so new. I don't know exactly what the best answer is there. All I can tell you is that make sure you have the first one selected. So that is really, that's one of the main reasons I use Cloudflare. I get the firewall feature where the proxying is done, but this is the number two thing here, is that I can block bots. All right, this is the fancier, more complex part of this. Fancy security rules in Cloudflare. So when I bought this domain, immediately after, I was getting a ton of traffic from France and Canada, which makes absolutely no sense. So I was like, all right, I'll set a little rule to block this. So when you go over here under security and you go to analytics, you can look at each entry in here, and I could tell that it's hitting the WordPress JSON feed and it's from France. No one should even know that this website exists. I said, you know what? I'll set a little, a little rule to block that. So under the WAF, the web application firewall, you can hit this create rule, and you get, I think it's 5 free rules. If you need more rules than that, then you have to start paying for Cloudflare. But in most of the time, I only set 1 or 2 rules for a client. So here it is. Create. You can hit create a rule, and you can tell it to, all right. Let you give it a name. Mine is JS Challenge the French. So we're going to set up a JS challenge for traffic from France. So if the country equals France, then do a JS challenge. And when you hit deploy and you um, save it, whoops, went too far. There we go. Shouldn't use my mouse. Um, right here, just showing you that you have saved the rule, and then I connected with my VPN, made it look like I'm from France, and this is what you see when you try to access the site from France. It verifies that you're human, basically, and it takes 2 or 3 seconds. And if you're human, then it'll take you to the site, and the site will pull up. Literally, this is what the site looks like. It's a default WordPress install. But then you can get even fancier if you're getting a lot of unwanted traffic from France, or you have no, like, people from France never ever need to go to the site, and you're getting a ton of unwanted traffic from it. You can just block it also. You don't have to do the JS challenge. You can block it completely. Now we're going to get a little fancier. So one, this was about a year ago. I was getting 2 sites were getting a ton of traffic from Singapore. And so I set this rule: if the country equals Singapore, then do something. But I wanted to get even more specific. There was a bot called Pedalbot, which I didn't know, never heard of it, haven't heard anything since. But I wanted to block all the petalbot traffic that's coming from Singapore. So if the country equals Singapore and the user agent contains petalbot, so when I say user agent, every browser or everything that hits a website, it has some kind of string, user string or user agent string, telling you it's Mozilla or it's Chrome or it's Firefox or whatever. So this is saying if it's Singapore and it's this bot's browser hitting it, then block it, which is a really cool rule when you're getting a bunch of unwanted traffic. And then you can even get fancier, and this is one of the things that I tend to do. Let me get something to drink real quick. All right. Securing your WP login. And this doesn't have to be specific to WordPress. This could be used for Drupal. I mean, the rule will be slightly different, but the concept's the same. So anybody that logs in to our website, like Clockwork Web Dev website, that's making content changes, they're going to be coming from the United States. Anybody else that's trying to get into the site, they don't need to log into the site. We don't have a public blog where people are going to log in to make comments and things like that. And that's how we do a lot of our sites. We have a lot of marketing sites where the very few actually have a blog, so there's not much of a reason for people to log into the site unless you are an owner and administrator at that company. So I'll set up a rule that's kind of cool to block this. So if the country does not equal the United States, and to be honest, I wish I could specify if I could do it by state, but if the country does not equal the United States and the URI path contains wp login.php, so if they're not from the United States and they're trying to log in, then block them. So I can set that rule up. And once that rule is set up, like if you the JS challenge, it'll start showing you how many hits you're getting, and when you click on that, it'll take you here, and you can see all of the incidents of the JS challenge being hit, and then you can click on it and get more details and see what's going on. That's pretty much it for the Cloudflare talk. So if you have questions, whatever, put them in the comments here, and also please like and subscribe, do something like that. I never say that, I'm never good at that, but anyway, if you like this, please subscribe and like. Thank you.